Stop everything you're doing right now because what I'm about to reveal is going to absolutely shatter your understanding of what happened at Wargames and expose the biggest conspiracy in WWE history that's been unfolding right under our noses. The mystery attacker who blindsided CM Punk during the Wargames match wasn't some random hired gun, it wasn't a shocking debut, and it definitely wasn't who WWE wants you to think it was. I have evidence, actual concrete evidence that proves Seth Rollins was the man behind that vicious assault on CM Punk, and before you start screaming in the comments that I've lost my mind or that this is clickbait or that Seth was supposedly injured and couldn't possibly have been there, I need you to shut up and listen because every single piece of this puzzle fits together so perfectly that by the end of this video you're going to be absolutely furious that you didn't see it coming. And here's the part that's going to make your blood boil: WWE is covering it up. They're actively trying to hide the truth from us, feeding us alternative explanations and false narratives to protect whatever they're building toward, but I've connected all the dots and I'm about to blow this whole thing wide open. So buckle up, turn off your distractions, and prepare to have your mind completely blown because nothing about Wargames was what it seemed, and CM Punk just became a pawn in the most elaborate revenge scheme Seth Rollins has ever orchestrated. Let me take you back to the moment that shocked the wrestling world and set all of this in motion. During the Wargames match, in the absolute chaos of bodies flying everywhere and weapons being used and multiple storylines colliding at once, CM Punk was suddenly attacked by a masked figure that nobody could immediately identify. The assault was vicious, calculated, and perfectly timed to cause maximum damage while creating maximum confusion. Punk went down hard, the match descended into even more chaos, and in the aftermath everyone started speculating about who could possibly be behind the attack. The internet immediately exploded with theories. Was it a returning superstar? Was it someone from Punk's past seeking revenge? Was it a hired mercenary brought in by one of the factions involved in the match? WWE commentary played it up as this huge mystery, acting shocked and confused, promising investigations and answers in the coming weeks. But what if I told you that the answer has been staring us in the face this entire time and WWE has been deliberately misdirecting us away from the obvious truth? Seth Rollins and CM Punk have one of the most complicated, most layered, most intensely personal rivalries in modern wrestling history. These two men have been circling each other like sharks for years, with periods of alliance followed by brutal betrayals, moments of mutual respect destroyed by ego and ambition, and an underlying tension that never fully goes away no matter how much time passes. Go back and watch their interactions over the past decade and you'll see a pattern of Seth never quite forgiving Punk for certain things, Punk never quite trusting Seth completely, and both men carrying grudges that run deeper than any championship or storyline could ever resolve. When Punk returned to WWE after his legendary absence, after years of bad blood with the company and a disastrous run in AEW that ended in lawsuits and chaos, Seth was one of the most vocal people about having mixed feelings. He said the right things publicly, acknowledged Punk's talent and importance, but if you read between the lines of his interviews and promos, there was always an edge, always a hint of resentment, always a suggestion that Seth felt Punk didn't deserve the hero's welcome he received. Now let's talk about the timeline of events leading up to Wargames because this is where things get really interesting and the conspiracy starts becoming undeniable. Seth Rollins has been dealing with an injury, or at least that's what WWE has told us repeatedly. He's been off television, supposedly recovering, unable to compete, forced to watch from the sidelines as others take the spotlight he believes belongs to him. But here's the thing that nobody's talking about: we've never actually seen concrete medical evidence of this injury. We've never gotten specific details about what's wrong, how long recovery takes, or when exactly he got hurt. It's all been vague statements from commentary and occasional social media posts from Seth that could easily be interpreted multiple ways. What if the injury was exaggerated or even completely fabricated to give Seth the perfect cover for being absent from television while he planned and executed this attack on Punk? What if WWE was in on it from the beginning, helping Seth maintain the illusion of being injured so that nobody would suspect him when the attack happened? Think about Seth's character and psychology over the years. This is a man who has proven time and time again that he's willing to do absolutely anything to get what he wants. He turned on his Shield brothers in one of the most shocking betrayals in WWE history, destroying a brotherhood that fans loved because he saw an opportunity for personal gain. He's manipulated people, formed and broken alliances, played mind games with opponents, and shown a ruthless streak that runs deep beneath his high-flying offensive style. Seth Rollins is calculating. He's strategic. He's patient when he needs to be. And most importantly, he never forgets a slight or an insult or a moment where he felt disrespected. CM Punk represents everything that drives Seth crazy. Punk gets treated like a legend despite walking away from WWE when things got tough. Punk gets cheered by fans who used to boo him. Punk gets opportunities in matches and respect that Seth feels should require years of loyalty to earn. And perhaps most infuriating to Seth, Punk came back and immediately slotted into a top position without having to crawl his way back up like Seth believes he should have. The mechanics of the attack itself tell us everything we need to know if we're paying attention. The attacker was masked, obviously, to hide their identity and create the mystery. But look at the body type, the movement style, the way they threw strikes. Wrestling fans who've watched Seth for years should immediately recognize his distinctive mannerisms. The way the attacker positioned themselves before the assault, the specific strikes they used, the targeting of Punk's previously injured areas, all of it matches Seth's style perfectly. Go back and watch the footage frame by frame, which I know many of you already have, and tell me that movement pattern doesn't scream Seth Rollins. The height is right, the build is right, even the energy and aggression level matches what we'd expect from Seth when he's in full attack mode. But WWE is counting on the mask and the chaos of the Wargames environment to provide plausible deniability, to make people question what they're seeing, to create just enough doubt that the truth stays hidden until they're ready to reveal it. But the physical evidence is only part of the story. Let's talk about motive, because Seth has about 17 different reasons to want to destroy CM Punk both professionally and personally. First, there's the simple matter of positioning. With Punk back and receiving massive attention, Seth's spot in the company hierarchy feels threatened. Seth has been a workhorse for WWE for over a decade, carrying the company through injuries to other top stars, working hurt himself multiple times, doing every promotional appearance and media obligation asked of him, being the company man in every sense of the word. And his reward for all that loyalty is watching CM Punk, who badmouthed WWE for years and left on terrible terms, come back and immediately get treated like royalty. That has to eat at Seth every single day. Second, there's their personal history, which includes moments of betrayal and disrespect on both sides that have never been fully addressed or resolved. Third, there's the fact that Punk's return has dominated conversation and media coverage in ways that pushed Seth's own storylines and accomplishments to the background. Fourth, and this might be the most important, Seth knows that taking out Punk in this fashion, creating this mystery and eventually revealing himself as the mastermind, would instantly make him the most hated villain in WWE and give him nuclear heat that he could ride for years. Now let's examine WWE's role in all of this, because they're not innocent bystanders, they're active participants in the cover-up. Triple H, who runs creative now, is a master of long-term storytelling and elaborate conspiracies. He learned from the best during his own career, playing political games and executing complex schemes that paid off months or years later. Triple H also has his own complicated history with CM Punk, respecting him as a performer while also having clashed with him during Punk's previous WWE run. What if Triple H saw an opportunity to create the kind of shocking, water-cooler moment that defines eras by giving Seth the green light for this attack while maintaining complete secrecy? What if the injury storyline was specifically crafted to provide Seth with the perfect alibi, ensuring that when speculation started about who attacked Punk, Seth's name would get dismissed immediately because everyone believes he can't compete right now? The timing of the attack is also incredibly suspicious when you start analyzing it. Why during Wargames specifically? Why not during a regular match or a backstage segment where it might be easier to execute? Because Wargames provides the perfect chaos and confusion to hide the truth. With two teams, multiple wrestlers, weapons everywhere, and the unique cage structure, there are countless opportunities for someone to slip in unnoticed, countless angles where cameras might not catch everything, countless plausible explanations for how the attacker got into position. Seth didn't choose this moment randomly. He chose it because it gave him the best chance of pulling off the attack while maintaining his cover as an injured superstar who couldn't possibly be involved. And WWE's production team, which sees and records everything from multiple angles, has conspicuously not released footage that would definitively identify the attacker. They've shown us the attack from carefully selected angles that obscure the key details while showing just enough to keep the mystery alive. That's not accident, that's deliberate editorial control designed to protect the long-term story they're building. Let's also talk about the reactions from other wrestlers, because their responses have been telling if you know what to look for. Drew McIntyre, who's been feuding with Punk, immediately got scrutiny as a potential suspect, but his denial seemed genuine and he had no real motive to attack Punk during Wargames when he could face him one-on-one anytime. Other potential suspects got floated online, but none of them have the personal history, the motive, or the physical capabilities that match what we saw. Meanwhile, Seth has been conspicuously quiet about the whole situation. He hasn't tweeted about it, hasn't done interviews addressing it, hasn't inserted himself into the speculation the way he normally would if a major angle was developing without his involvement. That silence is deafening. Seth is usually one of the most active WWE stars on social media, always commenting on major events and storylines, always giving his opinion whether asked or not. But suddenly when CM Punk gets mysteriously attacked, Seth has nothing to say? That's not coincidence, that's guilt and an attempt to avoid drawing attention to himself. The wrestling media has also been surprisingly hesitant to seriously float Seth's name as a suspect, which suggests they might have been given guidance from WWE about not pursuing that angle too aggressively. Wrestling journalists typically throw every possible name into the speculation mix, no matter how unlikely, because it generates clicks and discussion. But Seth's name keeps getting dismissed quickly whenever it comes up, always with the same explanation about his injury making it impossible. Nobody's questioning whether the injury is legitimate. Nobody's investigating the timeline closely. Nobody's pointing out all the evidence that points directly at him. That level of uniformity in coverage across multiple independent outlets suggests coordination, suggests that WWE has been managing the narrative carefully to protect the surprise they have planned. There's also the question of what comes next, because if Seth was indeed the attacker, WWE has to have a plan for how and when to reveal the truth. My guess is they're building toward a massive confrontation, possibly at the Royal Rumble or even WrestleMania, where Seth finally reveals himself and cuts a promo explaining his actions that will be remembered as one of the greatest villain speeches in wrestling history. Imagine Seth standing in the ring, finally healthy or finally admitting the injury was a work, with CM Punk broken and furious, and Seth explaining in excruciating detail why Punk deserved everything that happened to him. Seth would talk about Punk's hypocrisy, his ego, his sense of entitlement, his pattern of burning bridges wherever he goes. Seth would position himself as the voice of everyone in the locker room who's sick of Punk getting special treatment. Seth would transform himself into the ultimate antagonist while simultaneously making points that a portion of the audience would actually agree with, creating that perfect heel dynamic where you hate him but can't completely dismiss his arguments. The long-term storytelling possibilities here are absolutely incredible if WWE executes this properly. You could have months of Punk trying to prove it was Seth while Seth maintains his innocence and the injury narrative. You could have Punk becoming increasingly paranoid and aggressive, alienating potential allies as he pursues his vendetta. You could build an entire coalition of wrestlers around Seth who share his resentment of Punk, creating a faction war that spans multiple pay-per-views. You could tell parallel stories of Punk trying to clear his name and reputation while also trying to unmask his attacker, with every lead turning into a dead end until the truth finally comes out in the most dramatic way possible. This could be the defining storyline of the next year if they're patient enough to let it develop properly. But here's what makes me absolutely furious about this whole situation. WWE is lying to us. They're looking us straight in the face through their commentary team and their official statements and their social media accounts and telling us they don't know who attacked CM Punk when they absolutely know the truth. They're treating us like we're stupid, like we can't see the obvious connections, like we'll just passively accept whatever explanation they eventually provide without questioning the logic or the timeline. And the worst part is, they're probably right about most of the audience. Most fans will take the reveal at face value whenever it happens, will react with surprise even though the clues were there all along, and will praise WWE for the shocking swerve without acknowledging that some of us figured it out immediately. That's insulting. That's disrespectful to the intelligence of dedicated fans who pay attention to details and patterns and character motivations. I've been studying wrestling for decades, analyzing storylines, predicting outcomes, understanding the business side and the creative side and how they intersect. And I'm telling you with absolute certainty that Seth Rollins attacked CM Punk at Wargames. The evidence is overwhelming once you start looking at it objectively instead of just accepting what WWE tells you to believe. The body type matches, the movement style matches, the motive is clear, the timing makes perfect sense, the injury cover story is suspiciously convenient, the media silence is coordinated, and the long-term storytelling potential is exactly the kind of thing Triple H would want to build toward. Every single piece of the puzzle fits together perfectly. And the only reason more people aren't talking about this is because WWE has successfully manipulated the narrative to protect their surprise. Think about Seth's entire career arc and how this attack fits into his evolution as a character. He started as part of the Shield, beloved by fans for his innovation and athleticism. He betrayed his brothers and became one of the most hated heels in the company. He eventually turned face again and had successful runs as a good guy, but there was always something missing, always a sense that heel Seth was the real Seth and face Seth was just a performance. He's been towing the line between hero and villain for years now, showing flashes of the ruthless opportunist he used to be even while ostensibly being one of the good guys. Attacking CM Punk and revealing himself as the mastermind would be Seth finally embracing his true nature, finally stopping the pretense of being a hero, finally accepting that he's at his best when he's at his worst. It would be character development that makes perfect sense given everything we know about who Seth Rollins really is. There's also a meta-narrative here about CM Punk's real-life controversies and how they inform his wrestling character. Punk has a documented history of conflicts with coworkers, management disputes, legal battles, and burned bridges throughout his career. He's been involved in very public feuds with people in multiple wrestling companies. He's earned a reputation, deserved or not, as someone who's difficult to work with and quick to take offense. Seth could use all of that real history in his eventual promo, blurring the lines between character and reality in the way that only the best wrestling storylines do. Seth could say that he attacked Punk not just because of their WWE history but because Punk represents everything wrong with entitled stars who think the business owes them something. That kind of work-shoot promo, mixing real grievances with fictional storyline, would be absolutely explosive and would generate mainstream media coverage beyond just the wrestling bubble. Consider also the business implications of this reveal. WWE is always looking for those marquee matches that can headline WrestleMania and draw casual viewers back to the product. Seth Rollins vs CM Punk with months of build based on this attack and the subsequent reveal would be exactly that kind of match. The story writes itself. The promos would be incredible because both men are elite talkers who can work the crowd. The match itself would be a guaranteed show stealer because both are tremendous in-ring performers. And the heat on Seth would be nuclear, making him the most despised villain in the company and ensuring that whoever eventually defeats him gets an enormous babyface boost. From a pure business perspective, this storyline is worth millions of dollars in ticket sales, merchandise, and media attention if WWE executes it properly. Now I need to address the people who are going to say I'm wrong, who are going to insist that Seth's injury is real and that I'm creating elaborate conspiracy theories out of nothing. To those people I say, watch the footage again. Really watch it. Don't just casually view it once and move on. Study every frame of the attack. Look at the attacker's build, their movements, their strike patterns, their positioning. Then go watch Seth Rollins' matches from the past year and compare. The evidence is there. You're choosing not to see it either because you don't want to believe WWE would lie to you or because you're not paying close enough attention. And as for the injury being real, I'll believe it when I see actual medical documentation, which WWE will never provide because it doesn't exist. The injury is a story, a narrative device, a piece of the larger work that allows this angle to function. The psychological warfare aspect of this attack also can't be ignored. CM Punk is someone who thrives on knowing his enemies, on being able to call out his opponents, on verbal sparring and mind games. By attacking him anonymously and then maintaining the mystery, Seth is doing the one thing guaranteed to drive Punk absolutely crazy, forcing him to fight an enemy he can't see or confront directly. Punk is probably backstage right now losing his mind, suspecting everyone, trusting no one, becoming increasingly isolated as paranoia sets in. That's exactly what Seth wants. He's not just trying to injure Punk physically, he's trying to destroy him mentally and emotionally, to break him down psychologically until the eventual reveal hits even harder. It's sophisticated villain work that shows how much Seth has evolved as a character and performer. The historical parallels to other great wrestling angles also support this theory. Think about the greatest mystery attacker storylines in wrestling history and how they played out. The common thread is always that the answer was hiding in plain sight, that the clues were there for people who paid attention, and that the reveal made perfect sense in retrospect even if it shocked people in the moment. That's exactly what's happening here. Seth Rollins is the obvious answer if you're actually analyzing the situation instead of just passively consuming the content. But WWE is betting that most fans don't analyze, they just react, and that when the reveal eventually happens people will be shocked despite all the evidence that was right in front of them the entire time. I also want to talk about what this means for CM Punk's character going forward. Punk came back to WWE supposedly more mature, more willing to be a team player, more focused on the positive aspects of wrestling rather than the political games and conflicts. But this attack and the mystery surrounding it is going to bring out the old paranoid, angry, vindictive CM Punk that we remember from his most controversial periods. We're going to see him lash out at innocent people as he tries to find his attacker. We're going to see him make enemies and burn bridges in his quest for revenge. We're going to watch him transform back into the CM Punk that made so many enemies throughout his career, and it's going to be fascinating television because it'll feel earned rather than forced. The attack is the catalyst that justifies Punk's worst instincts coming back to the surface. The technical execution of keeping this secret, if it's true, would be incredibly impressive from WWE's perspective. In an era where everything leaks, where insider information spreads instantly, where it's almost impossible to surprise anyone, pulling off a genuine shock requires military-level operational security. If Seth really is the attacker and they've managed to keep it secret this long, that means only a handful of people know the truth. Triple H obviously. Seth obviously. Maybe a few key producers and writers. But that's it. They can't even tell most of the locker room or risk someone accidentally revealing it. They can't tell commentary in advance or their reactions won't be genuine. They have to compartmentalize the information so heavily that the truth stays protected until exactly the right moment. That level of secrecy and planning is actually really impressive if they can pull it off. What absolutely cannot be ignored is Seth's social media behavior in the weeks leading up to Wargames. Go back through his Twitter and Instagram posts and you'll notice something interesting. He was posting regularly about his injury, about his recovery process, about watching from home. But if you look closely at the photos and videos, something feels off. The timestamps don't always make sense. The locations seem inconsistent. The whole thing feels like someone establishing an alibi, creating a digital paper trail that proves they couldn't have been at Wargames. But digital evidence is easy to manipulate. Photos can be taken in advance and posted later. Videos can be pre-recorded. Social media posts can be scheduled. Seth could have created an entire fake timeline of his recovery and whereabouts while actually being perfectly healthy and planning his attack on Punk. It's exactly the kind of calculated deception that his character would engage in. The reaction from CM Punk himself has also been interesting and somewhat telling. He's been angry, obviously, making statements about finding whoever attacked him and making them pay. But there's been something specific in some of his promos, little references, and word choices that make me think he suspects Seth but can't prove it yet. Punk is smart, he's been in the business long enough to read between the lines and see patterns. I wouldn't be surprised if Punk already knows or strongly suspects it was Seth but is playing along with the mystery angle because that's what the storyline requires. The real fireworks will come when Punk finally has proof and can confront Seth directly, when the accusations can fly and the truth can come out and they can both finally say everything they've been wanting to say about each other. Let me paint you a picture of how the eventual reveal could go down, assuming WWE builds this properly. We're several months down the line, Punk has been investigating obsessively, following every lead, eliminating suspects, getting increasingly frustrated and angry. Meanwhile, Seth has supposedly recovered from his injury and returned to action, staying far away from Punk, focusing on other storylines, maintaining his innocence. Then something happens, maybe Punk finds a piece of evidence, maybe someone who knows the truth finally breaks, maybe Seth just decides it's time to reveal himself. They end up in the ring together, face to face, and Seth finally admits it. The crowd would absolutely lose their minds. The heat would be incredible. And then Seth delivers the promo of his life, explaining exactly why he did it, laying out every grievance, every resentment, every reason why CM Punk deserved to be attacked and humiliated. It would be a WrestleMania caliber moment even if it happens before WrestleMania, the kind of segment that people remember and talk about for years. The beauty of this storyline is that it works on multiple levels simultaneously. For casual fans, it's a simple mystery with a shocking reveal and a clear hero versus villain dynamic. For hardcore fans who pay attention to details, it's a complex psychological thriller with clues and foreshadowing and character development. For business-minded fans, it's a masterclass in generating heat and building toward a money match. Everyone gets something out of it regardless of how deeply they choose to engage with the story. That's the mark of truly great wrestling storytelling, when it satisfies the entire spectrum of the audience from the most casual to the most dedicated. I'm putting my reputation on the line with this video. I'm stating definitively that Seth Rollins attacked CM Punk at Wargames and that WWE has been covering it up as part of a long-term storyline. When the truth eventually comes out, whether I'm right or wrong, come back to this video. If I'm right, spread this everywhere and acknowledge that some of us actually pay attention and can see through WWE's misdirection. If I'm wrong, I'll own it completely. I'll make a follow-up video admitting I got worked and explaining where my analysis went off track. But I don't think I'm wrong. Everything I've laid out here makes too much sense, fits together too perfectly, aligns too well with character motivations and business objectives. Seth Rollins is the mystery attacker, and when WWE finally reveals the truth, the wrestling world is going to explode in the best possible way. So share this video, tag WWE, tag Seth, tag Punk, get this message out there and let's see if they're brave enough to acknowledge what we already know.